Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, Transform Grief and Pain into Purpose and Joy. My name is Nadira Ade, and it is my pleasure to be hosting this hour-long Q&A call for the Shift Network, where we will explore the teachings of Uma Girish and address questions about her upcoming 7-week course, which begins next Thursday, January 30th. Later, I will explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to take a moment to introduce our guest. Uma is a grief guide, life purpose coach, and award-winning author. Her view of healing is rooted in a deep connection with the divine. It was her own personal loss, that of her mother in India, 8 months after she and her family moved to Chicago, that led her down the path of grief healing. As she learned the tools she needed to heal her own pain, she gained clarity about what she was meant to do with that pain, and using it to serve others became her mission. She has an international diploma in teaching and training from Cambridge University, a certification in dream coaching, and mentoring with some of the top experts in the grief and loss industry. Through her work, Uma helps people move through their grief and loss to live lives of joy, meaning, and purpose. In just a few moments, we're going to open up for questions, but first I want to welcome Uma to the call, who will begin by leading us in an opening meditation. Welcome, Uma.
Thank you so much for that lovely and generous introduction, Nadira. So, viewers, go ahead and close your eyes and become aware of your breath. Taking some nice, slow, and long inhales. Breathing in, expanding, dropping into your body with complete awareness. And on the out breath, send out anything that no longer serves you in this moment. Any worries, stress, tension, the to-do lists, let it all go on your out breath. Breathing in and out. And as you breathe and relax and deepen your present moment awareness, I invite you to place yourself in a beautiful bubble of golden light. See this bubble of light almost like an eggshell inside which you feel the warmth, the safety, and the comfort of this moment. And as you begin to be safely ensconced in this beautiful bubble of light, watch all the rays from inside this bubble converge into your heart chakra, almost like they're feeding your heart chakra. And bring your awareness to your heart chakra. I invite you to visualize your heart chakra almost like a set of doors opening. And as these doors open, you are setting the intention to receive what is coming your way for your highest good. And setting the intention that you will receive exactly what you're ready to receive in this moment. So it's not too much, not too little, just exactly what you need to receive. Breathing into your heart chakra. Feeling centered and grounded. pulling in all the rays into your heart chakra and feeling strengthened by the power of this beautiful golden light. Take a moment to express your gratitude for this moment, for the opportunity to be here, to be connected with what is sacred in your life. For this moment to breathe and relax. So taking one deep, long inhale. And feeling completely centered on the exhale, gently, ever so gently, open your eyes and come into the space.
Thank you. That was beautiful. For everyone who is joining us, we want to devote as much of our time together as possible to your questions for Uma. So if at any time during this call you want to learn more about this 7-week course, please visit transformgriefcourse.com to see the full description. If you have questions for our customer service department, you can contact the customer support team directly at support.theshiftnetwork.com. And now we're going to transition to the questions. If you have a question for Uma and you haven't already, please place them in the chat and I am happy to bring them forward. Please also be aware that we have a lot of questions coming through and a lot of people who are holding a lot. So we may not be able to get to all of your questions, but we're going to get to as many as we can. The first question is from, is from Jerry, who says, I am nearly 9 years beyond the death of my husband. We were doing very well and just about ready to enter retirement when he passed. I'm going to pause and also let you know that we have a lot of people who are sharing personal stories, so I want to hold them with respect and also let you know that in the interest of time, we may not be able to read the entirety of your share. So I apologize if you feel that there's some information you wanted offered that doesn't come through. But she says, I'm nearly 9 years beyond the death of my husband. We were doing very well and just about ready to enter retirement when he passed. I just want to cry and mourn him. I also have a very hard time with music. If I listen to music from our 31 years together, it depresses me even though I love it. I want to know if I will always have these issues and are they common?
So thank you, Jerry, for that question. And the first thing I want to say is I'm deeply sorry for your loss. It is really hard when you lose a spouse. And I completely understand where you are. It's been 9 years, so I suggest you meet with a professional, if you haven't already, to determine whether this is deep depression or whether you are able to be functional in your daily life and go about your daily tasks. That said, we tend to think that there's something wrong with us if we are crying too much. I always say that if we have 10,000 tears to shed and we've only shed 1,000, we still have some ways to go. So if the music that you and your husband used to listen to makes you cry, allow yourself to let that sadness out of you. Anything that you let go, every piece of sadness that you allow to move through you, is really going to help you feel lighter, is going to create space for healing inside of you. So try not to be concerned about the fact that you're crying. I would also encourage you to find a support group if that feels like a good idea. I hope you have people you can talk to and share memories with. This is really important and an essential part of healing. So, if the music that you're listening to makes you cry, don't be concerned in the least bit. It's okay. The reason why, like I said, we place a hold on those things that make us cry is because we think we are out of control when we are crying. But if we can just be present to the sadness without judging it, without needing to feel a sense of control even as we are crying, then the tears have the ability to release. And in release, you will find a deep sense of healing. And with time, you should definitely feel better and better. Don't for a moment imagine that this is where you're going to be. It seems like, it's been 9 years, so it probably feels like you've been grieving for a long time. And that's why I said at the very top of my answer that you may wish to consult with a professional if you need one-on-one assistance. But it is possible to heal from loss, and we can take steps to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Carinsa says, how do I unblock my connection to the divine to heal all my fear around death?
So I didn't get her name. Is it Corinne?
It's Carinsa.
Carinsa. Thank you for your question, Carinsa. So my question to you is, why do you feel like your connection with the divine is blocked? In truth, our connection to the divine is never really blocked because we are energy and we are vibration, and we are always connected to source energy or spirit or God, however you choose to name that divine energy. The feeling of being blocked comes because we have certain misconceptions around our connection with the divine. So I guess I will need to have a little more information about why you feel blocked. And to get to your question about your fear of death, it's a very common fear, so I want to normalize that for you. Almost everyone who is alive has this fear of death because the survival instinct is our strongest instinct, right? We do everything we can to keep ourselves alive. So that being the case, the fear of death is completely normal. But even so, knowing that we are on this human journey, which has a finite time frame, that we all have to die one day, I would invite you to explore why this is so. What is this fear around death and dying? Have you witnessed a family member or friend go through a painful death experience? Have you heard stories about it? Or is it just a normal fear of what happens after we die? So a couple of suggestions I have for you. There's something called death cafes, and you may find one in your area. Just do a Google search. If you find a death cafe, that's a really safe space to explore some of your fears around death and dying. The second thing is, ask yourself, do I believe that there's something beyond this life? Or do I believe that death is the end? Many times when we hold on to this belief that death is the end and there's nothing beyond it, then we get completely terrified because we are so identified with our human existence. So if you can get interested in, is there something beyond this life? And is there some way I can explore it? I invite you to check out books about near-death experiences. An excellent book to begin with is Anita Moorjani's Dying to Be Me. And there are several others out there. So read about these experiences. It is one of the things that brought me the greatest healing when I was deep in sadness about the loss of my mother, because I began to understand that there is something beyond this life, or that's my knowing. And I know it's not everybody else's knowing, but this is what brought me so much comfort when I was grieving hard. So check out the death cafes, check out books on near-death experiences, and know you are always connected to spirit. I would invite you to have a daily practice, a spiritual practice that helps you deepen this connection with the divine. It could be as simple as lighting a candle every morning and sitting for 5 minutes in quiet time. even that simple practice will sort of deepen your connection with the divine and help you feel supported by the universe.
Thank you. Shaf would like to know, how do you recommend we remain living in the present moment?
Thank you so much, Shah, for your question. Living in present moment awareness is actually a constant practice. I don't think any of us can live here, in the present moment 100% of the time, because we have a human mind that thinks and analyzes and dissects and remembers and wants to recreate and fantasize. So, given that we have a human mind, we must be realistic about present moment awareness. We can't be here all the time. But the invitation when we abandon present moment awareness and we are either living in the past or the future is to bring ourselves back here, or to say, oh, here I go thinking about something that happened 3 months ago or 5 years ago. Oh, here I am thinking about what might happen 3 months from today or 3 weeks from today, and I'm creating all kinds of worst case scenarios. I'm in worry and stress mode. I don't need to be. And so recognizing is the very first thing we need to do. When we recognize, then we can bring ourselves back to this moment. And the easiest way to do that is to ask the question, am I breathing? The moment you ask the question, am I breathing? It will bring you back to your nostrils, your belly, your breath. And the breath is the easiest way for you to ride back to the present moment. So catch yourself and then bring yourself back. It's a constant practice, almost like the shower we take every day.
Thank you so much. Pamela would like to know, she shares first, I lost my husband unexpectedly after 34 years of marriage. It was because of a medical misdiagnosis. I lost my best friend, my future, my financial security, and most importantly, the father to my daughter. How do I find my purpose and joy after I have lost so much?
Pamela, I'm so sorry for your loss. My heart really hurts for you. But I want you to know that you're not alone. Don't for a moment think that you are navigating this loss all by yourself. Feel supported by the divine, feel supported by community. The question you have asked is one I get very often. Most people want to know, how can I go from pain to purpose? Unfortunately, we don't get to leap from pain to purpose. It is a process. We have to start by healing our own pain. And that doesn't mean that we get to a destination where we're completely healed, but we begin to open to our soul's longing to make a difference, to be of service, to wake up in the morning feeling a sense of meaning. And that is a process. So the first place I would ask you to look at is healing yourself. Are you working with a professional? Are you working with a coach? Are you part of a support group? What questions do you have around death and dying? Do you believe in an afterlife? What are your soul's longings? What do you long to create as your legacy before your time on earth is over? These are some really good questions for you to answer. And you can go back and watch this recording to make a note of these questions if you like. But healing is the first step. We don't get to purpose. Sometimes it takes 5 years, sometimes it takes 8 years, sometimes it takes 2 months. Everyone's path is different, and we each get to our purpose and awareness of what we are meant to be doing with this life in our own time. So be okay with where you are. Don't be in a rush to get to your purpose. Focus on healing yourself. Focus on dealing with what happened to you. Sometimes all you can do in the moment is rest and nourish yourself. Nourish yourself, give yourself what you need. And then when your soul begins to heal, as your body begins to deal with the enormity of the shock of the loss that you've suffered, your soul will open doors for you. You will receive signs. Keep showing up and saying to your soul, I am ready to serve. I'm willing to make a difference. I'm here to live my soul's calling. And as you keep setting that intention, it will happen in its own time, but don't be in a hurry to rush it.
Thank you. Anna says, How can I release guilt after leaving a very difficult marriage?
Anna, that's a really good question, and I'm so sorry you had to struggle through this difficult situation. First of all, understand that guilt is something we do to ourselves as a way of beating ourselves up for what we've done. And if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, you probably believe that you should be giving and giving and giving of yourself. So when we make a decision to step out of an abusive or difficult relationship, we feel like we abandoned the other. Even though the relationship was difficult, you had struggles and challenges, maybe you were treated poorly and disrespected, there's a part of you that says, you abandoned this person or you abandoned this relationship. And that is why you're feeling guilt. Guilt, in some cases, is a really useful emotion when you can think about what is the message of guilt here? Did I do anything wrong? Is there something I need to make amends for? But if the answer is no, and you are looking out for yourself and you are loving yourself and you are learning how to create boundaries by stepping out of this abusive relationship, you don't have anything to feel guilty about. It is the ego part of us that makes us feel guilty. That's the voice in our heads that says, you did something wrong. You abandoned this person. How dare you walk out of this relationship? Almost like you had to live there and keep taking the abuse over and over again. But that's so not true. You deserve love. You deserve a good life. You deserve to be treated with respect. You are so worthy of this life of joy and peace. So you are not doing anything wrong if you stepped out of a relationship because you made a commitment and intention to love yourself. But if there's something that you need to make peace with, make amends for, then begin to recognize what that is. Is the guilt springing up from a sense of how poorly you allowed someone to treat you? Maybe that is the real source of your guilt. So you need to get really clear about what the message of guilt is in this situation. And once you understand that, you will know what to do. If it is that you've allowed yourself to live in this situation for as long as you have and allowed yourself to be disrespected, then offer yourself self-forgiveness. The person you were didn't know how else to be. And we all can do only the best we can in a situation. When we know better, we do better. But the person you were only had that information. So go easy on yourself, be compassionate, forgive yourself for what you didn't know how to do. Forgive your partner for what they didn't know how to do. To be a loving, committed partner, and understand that guilt is simply asking you to look at something in your life that needs a little more investigation or exploration.
Thank you so much. If you are just joining us, we are here with Uma Girish, learning about her upcoming course, Transform Grief and Pain into Purpose and Joy, which begins on Thursday, January 30th. Please log on to transformgriefcourse.com for all of the details and to register. And our next question is from Mark, who says, even though I know in my head that I am connected to my deceased wife and the divine, in my heart, I sometimes wonder if I deserve to be disconnected from both because I am not feeling the grief or crying that I think I should in light of how much I love her and all that we have shared. My question is, how do I walk through the process of transmuting these non-emotions into the golden opportunity for growth that life is now offering me?
Well, thank you for your question, Mark. Such a good question. We all grieve differently. We all experience emotional pain differently. And just because you're not crying, it doesn't mean you didn't love your wife. The fact that you showed up here and asked the question and are seeking an answer to find a place of comfort shows me that you care and you care very deeply. So I don't know when your wife passed, how long it's been, and whether you find yourself in a better place compared to where you used to be. Those are questions you need to ask. Anytime there's a should in our lives, we create unnecessary suffering and struggle for ourselves. So I should be grieving, I should be crying. These are statements that are birthed from your ego. Your soul, your spirit simply says, you know that this is not the end. You know that there is life beyond. You know that you will connect with your beloved wife one day. You know that the divine is watching over you. This is the voice of your soul. So connect with the voice of your soul, question what the ego is saying to you, and don't believe everything that the ego tells you. The ego is the scared self, it's the small self that is always anxious, overwhelmed, fearful. So when we give our power over to our ego, then we create more self doubt and overwhelm for ourselves. Instead, tune into the voice of spirit and listen to what the messages of spirit are. The voice of your soul that's speaking to you all the time. What is your higher self saying to you about this situation? Is it true that you don't love your wife? Is it true that you aren't grieving her, didn't grieve her? Is it true that this is the end? I'm sure your soul will have a different message for you, and I invite you to tune into the messages of your soul, your higher self, because that's where your wisdom and guidance lie.
Thank you so much. Kate would like to know, what suggestions do you have for dealing with grief that is complicated by trauma?
Such a good question, Kate. I'm glad you asked it because this is one of the things we are going to be talking about in the program, 7-week program. Complicated grief is really hard to deal with, and I don't know your typical situation, what you went through. Sometimes complicated grief happens because a loved one committed suicide. Sometimes it is because we've had an estranged relationship with a parent or a spouse or a sibling or a friend, and then they die unexpectedly, and we have this swell of emotion coming up, and we don't know what to do with it. We ask ourselves, I never felt anything for them when they were alive. I was angry, I was upset. Why am I feeling all this grief come up now? So there are many instances when grief can be complicated. And so I don't know what your situation has been or is, but we will be addressing this in our 7-week program. Complicated grief requires you, again, to really deal with forgiveness and compassion on a deep, deep level, because there are some tangled threads in the relationship. Sometimes, in the case of a suicide, you are asking the question, why was I not enough? Why did my loved one commit suicide? What didn't I see? Did I say enough? Did I do enough? What did I do to cause them to take their lives? So there are lots of complicated questions and problems that muddy this territory. And I don't want to give you an answer without knowing your specific situation, but I ask that you again go within you, ask yourself, what is the nature of your complicated grief? Is it that your loved one took their own life? Is it an estranged relationship? Is it that you had a fractured relationship with someone and something was said in a moment of anger and you weren't in their life for many years and then they died, which is bringing up a whole bunch of guilt for you? Get clear about what your situation is and then really surrender the situation to the divine. Ask for forgiveness for what you didn't know how to do, what you couldn't have seen, and then give yourself a large, large dose of compassion. That's really important in this situation. And I can speak more to this when I know your individual situation. So I do hope you will sign up for the program where we can get into this a little bit deeper.
Thank you. Patty says, can you recommend any tools for handling a shocking loss? My nephew just died suddenly in a tragic ski accident, and he has 3 little ones, a wife, and so many people who deeply loved him.
Patty, I'm so, so sorry. These kinds of unexpected losses are the most difficult to deal with because your nervous system is completely shaken up. It's agitated. You feel completely afraid. You imagine the worst has already happened, but even so, when you go to bed at night, you can't sleep, you have nightmares, you have flashbacks. All these kinds of experiences happen with an unexpected passing of a loved one. I cannot even imagine what your family is going through dealing with this loss. But again, I would say find a professional that you can talk to one on one. It's very important for you to be able to relive and retell the story of loss. That is a big piece of the healing. A lot of people think that speaking about the loss is it just brings up the agony, but you're actually working yourself. Um, you're working your healing as you tell the story. When my mother had died, I would tell the story over and over again. It was a way for my brain to understand that this thing happened. So find a trusted friend or family member or a professional if you need to, who will be willing and can hold space for you to tell your story. That is the first thing I would suggest. The second thing I would suggest is don't try to find answers as to why this happened. The mind does not do well with uncertainty. It wants certainty at all costs. So it will very quickly go to why did this happen? How could we have seen this coming? What could we have done differently? Who is to blame? All that kind of thing, because the mind craves certainty. Don't go to the mind looking for any answers. Some things in life are just that. We can't make sense of them. They just don't make sense. They're just terrible. They're horrible. They happen. And that's part of this human journey. And I just feel so much heartbreak for you and your family that this happened. So don't go to the mind for answers. Just allow yourself to be with the loss. Do what you can for those babies, for those children who are grieving, for the wife who's grieving. Hold space for them as you hold space for yourself. And more than anything, find someone to talk to one on one.
Thank you. Susanna says, the person I have been grieving for over the past 2 years is actually myself. I lost my job and I realized I had defined my entire identity around my career. I've lost all joy and I want to know how I can redefine myself and find true purpose.
Susanna, thank you so much for your question. This is a very, very common question that I come across. Many women, men and women, who are self-identified with their jobs, when the job is gone, they go, who am I anymore? And while it is difficult for you to navigate this path of loss, because you were probably, you not probably, you said you were identified with this job, when there's that void, who are you? And yet it is in the void, it is in that space of emptiness that we begin to reinvent ourselves. So maybe this was your soul's way of saying this position or this job no longer served you. Our soul finds ways to push us out of our comfort zone when what we've been doing no longer serves the soul's agenda. So if you can look at this as being rerouted towards your soul's purpose, towards something that you're meant to create in this world, through which you will find out who you are. And again, that sense of purpose isn't going to give you, sometimes, let me explain this differently. So if you're an author, sometimes your identity is, I'm an author. This is what I do. This is my self-identity. If you're an artist, your identity is that of an artist. If you're a teacher, that's who you call yourself. But at the end of the day, all of these are roles. And maybe a person's purpose is to be an author, to be an artist, to be a teacher. And yet, at the end of the day, that is still a role they're performing in their human experience. At the end of the day, your identity is that you belong to the divine. You are a spark of the divine. You are a piece of divinity that is expressing itself through your human form. And if you can be okay with that identity, you won't need your earthly roles and identities to make you feel like you are enough. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. When we have an identified experience with a role, what we are really saying is, I am enough because I am an author. I am enough because I'm a teacher. I am enough because I'm an engineer. I have value. I'm worthy. I'm deserving. You are worthy because you're a soul and you came from the divine and you will return to the divine. So, your divine identity, the fact that you have divine DNA, is the only identity that is ultimately true for you. And so, I would encourage you to find ways to strengthen this identity. When everything else that you do, no matter what your purpose is based on this identity, then you will feel a sense of deep connection that nothing can take away from you.
I had to take a deep breath after that one. That was beautiful. Thank you. Christine would like to know, do you have any specific suggestions to help someone dealing with grief related to chronic debilitating illness? It's not terminal, but it makes them constantly unwell, in chronic pain and fatigue and depressed, disrupting their lives, making them unable to hold a job and costing them relationships.
Christine, I'm really sorry to hear that this is your experience. But here's what I'm feeling guided to say. Anytime we have an illness or even chronic pain or chronic fatigue, it is because our energy is contracted. And our energy is contracted either because we are in a relationship that doesn't value us, that doesn't honor us, or we're doing things in our lives that are not energy expanding experiences. So maybe you were at a job where you just didn't feel like you fit in. Maybe you are friends with people who don't inspire or enlighten you in any way. It's not fun for you to do that. Maybe you find yourself living in an environment which doesn't elevate your life experience. What are those circumstances that contract your energy, that constrict your life experience? This is what we really need to answer. And when you have an answer to that, this next piece of that is, how can I bring into my life experiences that expand my energy? When your energy is expanded, your physical body feels well. Even those who have a terminal illness, they try to gravitate toward experiences that uplift them, whether it is listening to music, reading books, listening to podcasts that inspire. Whatever they are able to do, given the amount of energy they have, they try and magnify that energy when they have a certain level of awareness about this. So that's what I'm inviting you to consider. What are those energy uplifting experiences that you would like to invite into your life? Is it music? Is it hanging out with people who expand your life force energy? Is it writing? Is it art? Is it having more fun in your life? Is it working with a teacher one-on-one to help have some accountability and shift perspective on some things that you need to let go of? So there are so many ways in which we can expand our energies. The more we expand our energy, the better our body feels, and that will open doors to opportunities, jobs, relationships, things that you desire to have in your life. So I would begin by looking for things that inspire you and uplift you, and bring into your life at least one such experience every single day.
Thank you. Karen says, how does one cope when you keep having losses, many of them in a year and many over the years?
Karen, this is really, really hard, and I'm grateful that you asked the question, because I'm sure many people who are listening to this conversation are dealing with several losses, multiple losses. As you're trying to recover from one or heal from one, you have another loss, you have a series of losses, and it's really hard to find your feet, right? The thing to, there are no easy answers. That's the first thing I want to say. Again, it's important to prioritize your healing. Always make space and room for what is healing for you, and begin to understand that loss isn't personal. Just the realization that we are part of a universe which is based on the law of impermanence, where everything is cyclical, life and death and renewal are part of life. Just this understanding and awareness will help give you a tiny measure of peace. When we can really understand that loss isn't about us being dealt a bad hand of cards, or the divine being angry with us, or we are being punished for something. When we can let go of those negative beliefs that don't really help or serve us in any way, then we can slowly inch towards, how can I move through these difficult experiences? And it may be for you moment by moment, right? You can only put one foot in front of the other, do the next thing, take the next breath, make the next decision. When you begin to look at life as, oh my gosh, I have to figure all this out, that creates a terrible sense of overwhelm. So my suggestion to you, Karen, is to take life one day at a time, one step at a time, one breath at a time. Sometimes when we have multiple losses, that's all we can do. We wake up in the morning, say a prayer, ask for guidance to be helped through the day, ask the divine to walk with you every step of the way, to hold you, to be present with you, to allow you to make decisions that serve your highest good and the highest good of everyone that you support. That's the best way to take it one step at a time, one breath at a time. And you will slowly but surely inch your way to more and more healing. Do things that uplift you. Find people who understand you, who can hold space for you, who don't try to fix you or judge you for feeling what you're feeling. You need to have a small band of supporters, people who are in your life and who can be with you during this terrible time. The truth is, not many people are able to sit in the fire of loss with us. They can't take the heat. So you have to really get clear about letting people know that this is where you are in this moment in time. You don't know when you're going to feel better or heal. And if they can't be in your life, supporting you, caring for you, holding your hand, and simply walking with you, then they don't need to be in your life right now. You need to take a break, because your priority needs to be self-care and self-love in this moment. And that's the only way we can heal, one moment at a time.
Thank you. Beth says, my husband's health prognosis keeps changing. Just when I've adjusted my mind to the fact that he may not be around in a few years, they change his diagnosis and suddenly his prognosis is better. I regroup and start thinking of life together as long-term again, then they find other health issues with unanswered questions. I feel like I keep restarting the grieving process. First, I started grieving him, then I thought of my future without him, then I grieved the loss of those plans. How can I maneuver through this?
Thank you for asking that question, Beth. I think what your mind is trying to do here is hold on to certainty. So either be in that space of, okay, he is not going to survive, so I need to imagine and prepare myself for a life without him. And then the doctors come back and say that he's probably doing a little bit better. And then you go, okay, what do I think now? And this is your mind playing games. The mind is always wanting to get to a place of certainty. And yet, uncertainty is what the human experience is all about. So, can you just live from one day to the next without your mind becoming attached to any possibility? Either being attached to the possibility of, I'm going to imagine a life without him and I'm going to make my way through down that road, or making my way down the road of he's going to get better and we are going to have a life together. Can you simply tell your mind, I don't know from one day to the next. I'm just going to wake up and do what is required of me today in the moment. This is what creates discomfort for most of us. We don't know how to inhabit that space of uncertainty. We want to know, we want the answers. We want to know, is it this road or that road? And yet it's like the GPS, right? The GPS only tells you the next step to take. And once you get to that left turn, then it will give you the next step, whether you need to turn right or make a U-turn or go 300 feet further down the road. So treat life like that. Show up for life as, today I wake up and I do what's in front of me. Today my husband is still here. I'm just going to devote myself to what he needs of me and love him as best I can. Tomorrow is another day. I don't have to think about tomorrow in this moment. I think what you really need to practice in this situation, Beth, is present moment awareness. Just take it one day at a time without allowing the doctors, the prognosis, your husband's shifting health conditions to rattle you. Just be where you are today. Give thanks for what is possible today. And then when tomorrow comes, it's a different story, and you show up for tomorrow with the same energy.
Thank you. We're going to have time for one or two more questions, but before we take those, I want to mention transform grief and pain into purpose and joy once more. This is going to be a transformative and depthful 7-week journey under Uma's compassionate guidance, where you will be supported in learning to open to your pain and your soul's truest desires. The 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at noon Pacific, starting Thursday, January 30th. And if for any reason you cannot join us live, you won't miss the teachings. You will receive audio and video replays, transcripts, and all other course handouts via your course homepage. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving a full 2 weeks until February 13th in this case to make sure that you love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect via a private Facebook community group so you can stay in contact with one another. And everyone who registers for the course receives the Transform Grief and Pain into Purpose and Joy bonus collection, which include Making Peace with Death Through Grief, an audio dialogue with Sabrina Chaw, Invisible Losses Meditation, which is an audio meditation from Uma, and Grieving Patterns, an audio teaching from Uma as well. And then finally, a guide to finding your purpose, 6 soul journaling prompts to help you find your way, which is a PDF guide from Uma. Uma, can you share a little bit about what you are most looking forward to offering in this course?
I am beyond grateful that we're doing the 7-week course. It's going to be such a wonderful healing experience. We're going to cover so much over the 7-week journey. We're going to start by talking about emotions as messengers, how emotions are not the enemy, but they're here to help us navigate this earthly experience. We'll talk about the 4 levels of grieving, which are really important to understand so that you can be present for all 4 levels of healing. We will get into competitive grief, cumulative grief, comparisonitis, which is a big problem that most grievers run into. We'll also do an entire module on ancestral healing. Grief isn't something we experience only in this lifetime. Sometimes you're carrying the grief of an ancestor you don't even know. So we'll talk about healing the mother wound and healing the family lineage. Then we get into the agendas of the soul and the ego, what your soul brought you here to do, what your soul came here to do. We will talk about legacy and life purpose. And when you end the program at the 7-week mark, you will begin working on a dream that is aligned with your purpose. So there's going to be so much wonderful information and healing opportunity on this 7-week journey. And I'd love to have you journey with me through this.
That sounds amazing and beautiful. And I hope everyone who's listening, if you're feeling called to join us in this course, that you will do so. I'm going to transition to the last couple questions. One is from Beth, who says, I am walking a slow path of grief and uncertainty after losing my 17-year-old son to suicide less than 3 months ago. Is there a window of time that you might say is too soon to begin looking for a path of purpose? I love the idea of this course, but worry I may end up pushing myself to heal and move forward faster than is necessary or than is healthy.
Oh, Beth, my heart is so heavy right now hearing your story. I'm very, very sorry. There's something completely out of order when a child dies before a parent. And especially in circumstances such as yours, the grief can be extremely complicated and heavy. To answer your question, I think the intention to heal is the most important thing when you embark on your journey. Signing up for a 7-week course, we are going to go module by module. So I don't know that it is rushing into anything, because you can do the modules at your own pace. You don't have to keep track with us. You can do a little bit at a time, and yet it will put you on the path. The first thing I want to say to you is, please don't blame yourself. It's completely common and natural for a parent to go to that place of, what did I do wrong? What did I not see? Why wasn't I enough? What didn't I do to love my child? And you've only been dealing with this for 3 months, so your grief is fresh and raw. I ask you to find within you that well of compassion and forgiveness for yourself. So know that you can progress on this journey at your own pace. As long as you feel guided to participate, do so. Here's what I want to say to everyone who's considering this course. When I sign up for a course, I look for resonance with the teacher. So I look for, is what this person's saying resonating with me? Are their messages landing in my heart? And if I feel a deep resonance with that, then I know that they're reflecting my own inner wisdom back to me. And it is a good match. It's a good connection. So I ask you to sit by yourself and think about, how do you feel about this program? How do you feel about signing up? And this is not just for Beth, but for everyone listening to me right now. Do you feel a resonance with the messages? Do you feel a resonance with some of what we're going to be talking about in this course? And if you feel guided and your heart is saying, yes, this connects to my inner wisdom, this is the journey that I want to walk, then by all means sign up. So I always invite everyone to check in with your own inner wisdom. Don't just listen to me, don't listen to what anybody else is saying. Your soul knows whether this is the right time for you, whether this is the right course for you. So check in with your inner wisdom, Beth. And if you join us, if you make the decision to be with us on this journey, we'll talk more in the Facebook group, and I can say more about your situation. But I just know that you have my deepest compassion, and do what's best for you and right for you at this time.
Thank you. And our final question is from Joe, who says, how do we invite our ancestors in for deep healing so that we may become healthy ancestors ourselves? And thank you, Uma, for all of the work that you are doing.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for that question. It's a question with a very long answer, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer it all right now. But the piece to understand is that we didn't just come here through our parents. We came here as part of a long lineage, sometimes thousands of years old. And it's important to understand and recognize this connection of the family lineage, because we bring through our bodies the DNA of our ancestors. So when there are stories in our lineage, family secrets that haven't been told, abuse, addiction, abandonment, these things can travel down the family lineage and really inform our life experience, whether it's a life of struggle, financial misery, broken relationships, even stillbirths and miscarriages. There's a lot I can say about it, but the time for it is we don't have the time for it right now. But just know that having a recognition of how your ancestor story affects yours will help you clear the path, help clear the path for you and the generations that come after you. This is very sacred soul level healing work. And so we're doing an entire module on this for this reason, because we have lots to talk about and lots to cover. So I invite you to sign up for the course if you're guided to, and we'll talk more about your connection with your ancestors, how these traumas get passed down through the family lineage, and some healing practices that can help you resolve and make peace with these traumas. Thank you for your question.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say this has been such a touching hour with you, Uma. Thank you to everyone for being with us. Thank you to Uma for sharing your wisdom with all of us on the call today. Transform Grief and Pain into Purpose and Joy starts next week, Thursday, January 30th. And again, please visit transformgriefcourse.com to learn more or to register. Uma, do you have any final words for our listeners?
Well, like I said before, I invite you to go within before you make the decision. This is a course that's going to be jam-packed with wonderful healing practices, meditations, journaling, guidance, education on various aspects of the grieving experience. We're going to talk all the way from grief and pain to purpose and joy. So it's a broad spectrum. We're going to be walking down this road. We need to address the pain and the healing before we can get to purpose and joy. So go within, sit with your inner guidance, your inner teacher, your inner being, and ask if this is the right course for you at this time. I would love to have you on this journey with me and with the Shift team. But the best person to say yes to you is your soul. So I would invite you to check in with your inner guidance and make the decision that's best for you at this time. But I wish you much healing. I wish you so much love and happiness in your life, no matter where you are. Know that you are capable of healing because you are divine and you have a connection with the divine that even if you don't feel in this moment is very real. It does exist. And if you open your heart and allow it in, you will be healed. And when you're healed, you can open up your life and your heart and share your gifts with the world. That's really why you came here, what you came here to do.
Thank you again, Uma, and thank you again to everyone who joined us on the call today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Take care.